Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Dear viewers, brothers and sisters, I hope you and your dear families are all well, inshallah. Thank you for joining Abu Haydar and myself for our second episode. We have a very important topic to discuss today, and unfortunately it is not something that is talked about as much in most communities since it is deemed negative and pessimistic. Today we'll be addressing the question, are we heading towards a global war? Now, the way that we're going to cover this topic is to look at our narrations and see what the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Imams, peace be upon them, have said. We'll also go over some current events to see the state of affairs at the moment. And lastly, we want to see what the narrations say about what we can do to be prepared for the trials of Akhir Zaman. Now, this topic will probably be divided into 2 episodes since there's a lot to discuss. And I want to start by saying that our goal is not to create fear amongst the viewers, but to discuss the subject in an open-minded way. We cannot 100% say that this is the time that we live in that it has been prophesized, but the current affairs in the world cannot be ignored, and unfortunately, we're headed in the negative direction. So without any further delay, let's begin, Abu Haydar.
Assalamu alaikum, brother and sister. Of course, we cannot ignore the events that are taking place around the world right now, and we cannot just sit and not paying attention to it. One of the narrations that's actually mentioned in Kitab al-Ghaiba for Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, which is actually a very long hadith speaking about the Imam speaking to Jabir, and he's explaining a specific events, which is I'm not going to quote all of them right now, but I just want to mention that part that related to the war, the great war that will take place. And the Imam said, until it reached to, and I'm quoting right now, said, one of the village of Sham called Al-Jabiyah sings, a part of the mosque of Damascus fall down, until it reached to, and then commotion in Rome. Commotion in Rome in the Arabic language speaks about, it says, Haraj Rome, or it's a lawless land, or and it's a very clear, it's an actual great war. So the narration's actually mentioning there is going to be a specific event which will be taking place. And on the sequence, specific sequence, that we have to be prepared for it. I think we will also go in detail in other episodes. We're speaking about what's the actual events that we have. It will be happening before the reappearance of the Imam. But today we just want to focus on that great war, because like all the news right now is speaking about, like for example, the Russia is ready for nuclear, the NATO is ready for nuclear, both parties are ready for a big party with a nuclear, and we have to look into our books and see is there anything mentioning that before? Is there any chance this war actually could happen or not, or this event actually is not related completely to what mentioning in our books. So now when you look into it, there is some things called Haraj Rum that will take place at some specific events, and then we need to be paying attention to this narration. So when we know the events, then we could actually not isolate ourselves from the actual events that are taking place at the moment, which is also, as Abu Ali mentioned, we're not saying this is a specific one, but we should be paying attention, since what if we actually living in this time? And if we didn't pay attention, then we actually lose the whole goal of the main mission that every one of us have by not paying attention to what's going on, so we could be ready. Otherwise, we'll be actually shocked and get surprised by events that we didn't pay attention to. So now, this is not also to scare anyone, but at least we know at one point there was a big war will happen. So we, as a human, we don't want to be too much emotional, but we need to be prepared and strong into it. So when we see things are going not the way we wish to live our life, but then we know there is a great events happening after that. There is a reappearance. So we're not being scared, or of course we'll be scared, but not in a way if we attach to this dunya.
Yes, Abu Haydar, you make a very valid point. And I really believe that there's a reason why the narrations mention this, right? It's not just to scare us, because some of the narrations, which while detailed and it's very scary, like you said, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is pretty scary, but I really believe that the Imams, peace be upon them, They try to let us know, not to sit here every single day, every hour of the day, think, is this the time? When is it? When is it? When is it? But for us to have the warning signs, to always be in constant remembrance of preparing, right? Because again, like you mentioned, the goal is to be prepared for the Imam, right? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said that if I were to live during his time, I would serve him, right? So that is the whole goal about all the events that happened prior, so that us followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are ready and we're not unaware of what is going on. Because as you mentioned in the past episode, that the Imam's reappearance will be sudden. But sudden for who? Sudden for the people who go about their life. They don't really pay attention to the things that are going on and what the books of hadith say about the reappearance of the Imam Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. And that's something that we definitely need to talk about more often. Again, I know it's not the most positive topic to discuss, but it is something that needs to be mentioned. And there's a book actually that all the viewers can access by Sheikh Najmuddin Tabasi. It's called An Overview of the Mahdi's alayhi salam's government, which again, we'll go ahead and provide a link in the description as well. And in one of the chapters, Security Before the Advent of the Imam Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, he explicitly mentions a few of the narrations which are found in some of the major books of hadith that we have. For example, in one narration commenting about the Great War in Akhir Zaman, the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali alayhi salam, stated, before the advent of Al-Qa'im, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, the world will face two types of death, the red death and the white death. The red death is through the sword, which is the weapon, while the white death is through a plague. In another riwayah, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, before the advent of Imam Al-Qa'im, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, again, two types of death will surface, the red death and the white death. The number of people to be killed will be such that in every group of 7, 5 will die, which is remarkable when we really think about it on such a scale, that 5 out of 7 people will perish. Again, another narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam says, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam will not appear unless 1/3 of the people are killed, another 1/3 die, and the remaining 1/3 will survive. They asked the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali alayhi salam, is there any sign and symbol for the advent of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif? And he said, yes, horrible killing, sudden death, and epidemics. The emergence of things that, for example, that we've been going through as an example. Again, I'm not saying this is the one, but we've seen in the last 20, 30 years the emergence of epidemics like MERS, SARS-1, SARS-CoV-2, which was the COVID pandemic, and so on and so forth. And lastly, the last one that I want to mention is Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, the Imam of time, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, will not appear unless 2/3 of the people in the world would die. It was asked if 2/3 of the people would be killed, how many will remain? He answered, are you not satisfied, and would you not like to be amongst the 1/3? So, as we see here, the Imams, peace and blessings be upon them, have prophesied that there will come a time that such a catastrophe will happen on earth, sadly, due to the hands of people, that this will occur. And these are some of the signs before the reappearance. And as Abu Haydar mentioned, our job here is not to connect the dots and say this is the time, or the time to put a time on when the narrations are. Our only intention, especially with this episode and the upcoming episode, is to reflect on the narrations regarding the Great War, where we are in the current state of the world, and most importantly, and this is a little bit of a message of hope in this circumstance, is what is expected of us to do during that time, how we can protect ourselves, how we can be prepared if, God forbid, that is the time that we live in.
And 2 points actually we need to keep in mind. So someone could say, if that's like how it's gonna be, so we don't need the Imam because the Imam is the one who causing all this unjust and killing. The reality is it's unjust that's a mankind did. The human being doing unjust all around the world right now. So it is a result of what's going on. As we recite in Dua al-Ahd, and we said that the Imam will يملأ الأرض قسطا وعدلا بعد أن ملئت ظلما وجورا. Like the Imam will come and spread the justice after it being has unjust. So that injustice is not caused by the Imam, or his reappearance is not because like the killing and all this, not because of the Imam. It's because the human being are the ones who are doing this themselves. But as a result of that, that will be then the Imam comes. And then when you look into it, if you don't have the hope of the Imam and the belief that the Imam is really coming, but keep in mind, brothers and sisters, and even to everyone, to myself, Imam al-Mahdi is coming. So when we look into this, no matter how hard it is, no matter how we think it's dark around us, we have the best hope that we could survive with in our life. Because no matter what happened, we know where is the destination. The destination is the Imam is coming. And this is the best message of hope. That you could have, live with it, your daily, that's you do your part. And if you missed it, then you come back and as you take every word as if you've been in the tent of the Imam. So again, no matter what's happening, you do your part. And at the same time, as Abu Ali mentioned, is not to scare anyone, but actually to be aware of what's going on. Because this is gonna happen. If it's happened during our time, then you don't think about it as a hard time only. Think about the result after it. An example that's all of us we see it during the life, when the time of pregnancy, when the mother about to give a birth, it's the hardest time before the birth. But then after it, then it becomes the happiness. And everyone's become happy and welcoming the new arrival. So the same, we also welcoming, we were looking forward for that. And this event is just like, as one of the narration also mentioned, it's like literally as is the pregnancy, and there's like sufferness in it, and after that, the new arrival is coming. So this is a message of hope, not a message of fear.
Well said, Abu Haidar. This is absolutely right. And inshallah, I think we'll cover the remaining part of this same topic in the upcoming episode. I think that'll be episode number 3, where we'll be discussing the current affairs and current events that are going on in the world, so that our dear viewers, and I'm sure a lot of our dear viewers are already aware of some of the things that are happening, but for some of the other ones that may not be aware of what is going on in the world, we're going to do a deep dive and cover some specific events, hot points that are currently occurring in the world today, and most importantly, also what the Imams, peace and blessings be upon them, suggestion is during this time, and how we should interact and behave, and what we should do to be prepared. As always, let's conclude our podcast with a brief dua. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ya Allah, please forgive us, our family members, brothers and sisters around the world, and deceased believers for any and all shortcomings. Ya Allah, we beseech you to hasten the reappearance of our Imam, peace and blessings be upon him. May you shower him with your infinite blessings and guide us to serve in his way. O Allah, may you heal all the ill people around the world. O Allah, we ask you to bless and aid our brothers and sisters around the world who are going through difficulty, especially the ones who are going through oppression. And since we're in the spirit of Shahr Ramadan, I'm going to conclude dua with a small excerpt from Dua al-Iftitah. Allahumma inna narqabu ilayka fi dawlatin karima.
Ilahi Ameen.
Tu'izzu biha al-Islam wa ahlah.
Ilahi Ameen.
وتذل بها النفاق وأهله.
إلهي آمين.
وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك.
إلهي آمين.
والقادة إلى سبيلك.
إلهي آمين.
وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة.
إلهي آمين.
Thank you, dear brothers and sisters, for joining us today, and until next time, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بلية